Hello, brothers and sisters and friends. I am greatly privileged to spend a few minutes with you today. This is the Words of Wonder YouTube channel, and I love to talk about those principles from the gospel of Jesus Christ, which are a source of inspiration and encouragement and empowerment to me. I've been thinking recently about some of the formative experiences I had as a child. I grew up in the 1970s in Ireland, and I lived in a very poor part of what was then a very poor country in Dublin, in Ireland. It was a poor area of the city that I lived in. And it was interesting for me because I don't remember feeling very poor as a child, although we were poor. Part of the reason for that was the gospel. The gospel of Jesus Christ was a source of enrichment and encouragement and hope to me. And there were two things that I really wanted to talk about today. This video is about the United States of America, and it's a spiritual video. It's a video with a spiritual focus. When I was a child, I would often see images of the United States and see messages from the United States, which were a great encouragement to me, a great inspiration, and which gave me a sense of ambition. Particularly, I remember the first film, Superman the movie, which came out in 1978, and at that time I was 5 years of age. And I remember seeing that movie on the big screen for the first time. I don't recall exactly what age I was. It was 1978, so I was 5, or perhaps 1979, so I would have been 6. But I just remember feeling so overjoyed, so enraptured, so excited, so invested in that movie. And one particular part of it, I think, was where Superman is flying with Lois Lane in the city of Metropolis, which of course is New York City, and just watching the skyline and seeing all the buildings and the lights and those high-rise buildings. And of course at the time I didn't fully comprehend the significance of that, but it was just such an empowering movie. I was so inspired by it. And as I grew, as I matured, as I became a teenager, I started to reflect on that a lot and realize the ideals that were represented in that: the truth, the justice, the liberty, the American way, as was called back then. And this idea that America, the United States of America, was the bastion of freedom, and it was a place of opportunity, a place of risk, a place of investment and capitalism, and a place where you could make a great living and you could rise through social mobility, to start at a very basic level but make something of your life. And the idea of the big city and the lights and the camera and the action and Broadway and all these sorts of thoughts, all these feelings, opportunity and experience. And as I reflected on that, and as I meditated on that, I realized that that was a great source of encouragement to me, a source of ambition. It was a source of inspiration. And as I've grown older, I'm 51 now, and a lot of my life has passed since that time, and I've realized so many important things. That the United States of America was an ensign to me. It was a flag. It was an invitation. It was a bastion of opportunity. And I'm not sure that we always fully comprehend the importance of example in our lives, and how a model, a pattern, an example, a type can be shown to us, and how it can inspire us individually and personally. I always wanted to travel to the United States, and I was grateful for the opportunity to do that many years ago. My wife and I, when we got married, were able to go on our honeymoon to the USA, and some people might think that's strange, that's unique. Why would you go to America for your honeymoon when you could go to Italy or other places like that? But for me, we went to Chicago and we went to Salt Lake, and they were two places that I was encouraged by the idea of the big city in Chicago, and then of course the church being located, the church headquarters in Salt Lake. And what a great and wonderful visit that was. And so I wanted to make this video to reflect on this idea that it's my firm conviction that God brought about the United States of America, and he laid the constitution of that land because it would be a beacon, it would be a light to the world. The Statue of Liberty is in New York, and that's an invitation, it's a beckoning. It's the idea of justice, it's the idea of fairness, it's the idea of health, hard work and self-sacrifice, being able to get ahead, being able to make something of your life, being able to progress. It's that opportunity to be more than you were. And that for me was a real call when I was young, growing up in a very poor Ireland. It was something to look to. It was a goal. It was a standard. And that for me was very personal. I felt it. It was like a beckoning. And I still live in Ireland, and I've lived in Ireland all of my life, except for the 2 years I lived as a missionary in England. But the United States of America has always been like a beacon to me. And I'm sharing that for various reasons. I don't know all the reasons why I'm sharing that, but I realize the United States has a difficult history, and I realize there's a lot of turbulence there at the moment. And these things are understandable. But I also realize that wherever there's great light, there's going to be great darkness. Wherever there's an opportunity, wherever God is trying to do his work, the adversary is going to try and raise his kingdom. And so it makes sense to me that America, that would have such a beacon and such a light and such an example to me and to the world, would also face great persecution, great opposition, great trials, great challenges, great hostilities, great conflict, both within and from outside. And I'm really struck by that, and I really felt to share that. The theme of this video is God bless the United States of America. And I feel that God provided that land for people to go, especially God-fearing people, but for people to go there for opportunity, to make a new life for themselves, to have religious freedom, to have an opportunity to start a business, to start a new life with new benefits that would accrue to them through hard work and through self-sacrifice, through prudential living, and would have a plan for their lives and be able to have that upward mobility, that social mobility. And of course, that's not just an economic principle. It's really undergirding it is a spiritual principle, is the idea that God wants us to progress. He doesn't want us to remain in poverty for all our lives, either a poverty of understanding or a poverty of resources. He wants us to grow. He wants us to have a sense of ambition. He wants us to reach beyond the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And I realize there's many powerful lessons we can learn from that. That beckoning call to me, the idea of the Superman, the idea of becoming something, of having a vision for your life, of having a plan, of having a desire to make a living, to become something and be something that you feel like you couldn't do somewhere else. And that really was a very important principle for me to learn in my young life, to give me a sense of hope, to give me a sense that all is not lost, to give me a sense that there was something to look forward to. And that's always been a beacon for me. I haven't yet visited New York City, but I believe I will one day. And I suppose I wanted to share that thought and that idea that we should never forget what the Lord has done in raising up the United States. And I realize, like all countries, America has its problems, but And this is primarily a spiritual video, so there's lots of other things I could talk about that I'm not going to talk about. But I want to talk about the idea that God has raised up that nation, and other people throughout the world have looked to the nation of America as a beacon and as an example and as a light. And for me, it's been a great light. It's been a source of inspiration. It's been a source of encouragement. It's been a source of hope, a source of consolation, a source of invitation, a beckoning ideal, a standard bearer, a flag, if you like. And again, I'm speaking spiritually, I'm speaking optimistically, and I'm speaking in terms of life. That life is meant to be an opportunity. It's meant to be a challenge, but we're meant to have a goal. We're meant to have a vision. We're meant to have something to reach toward, to improve our lives, to have a piece of land, a home we can call our own, to cultivate the land, to work the land, to cultivate a new country, a new place, a promised land. So there are spiritual undertones to this idea that the Constitution was set up to safeguard the life and the liberties of all of the people who would be there. And that helps me also to consider my second point. My second point is this idea that there's a spiritual destiny that God has for the Americas. And in the Articles of Faith, which were given to us by the prophet Joseph Smith, he has told us in verse 10, we believe in the literal gathering of Israel and in the restoration of the 10 tribes, that Zion, the new Jerusalem, will be built upon the American continent. And this idea of Zion is the promised land. Zion is the pure in heart, which means a people whose hearts are set on doing the will of God. Zion is the place where riches abound, where there is knowledge, where there is love, where there is priesthood, where there is covenant, where there is family, where there is righteousness. Zion is the place where Christ is at the center. His temples are at the center of the city. His doctrine, his law, his scriptures, his beautiful bounties. Zion is a place that God loves to be. And it's a place that puts God first, and a place of service, a place of thanksgiving, a place of gratitude, a place of faith, a place of hope, a place of charity, a place where God's people can worship, can serve, can build, can grow crops, can conduct business, and where they can serve and love and beautify and replenish the earth and do all the things that a God-fearing people want to do. And especially in the context of the restored gospel, that Zion in that sense are the stakes of Zion, the church of Zion, the people of God who are pure in heart, whose hearts and minds and lives are focused on God and his commandments. So the new Jerusalem, the holy city, the second city, there was an old Jerusalem, which was the holy city, but there's going to be a new Jerusalem, a new Zion, a new promised land where Christ himself will dwell personally during the millennium for a portion of those 1,000 years. That will be built upon the American continent. That's prophecy. That's scripture. And we don't know all the particulars of how that's going to happen, but we do know that's already happening. That the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is trying to set up a Zion society on the American continent and indeed throughout the world, and is inviting all people to it. When I think about the church is a beacon. It's a beacon of light. It's a beacon of hope. And missionaries from the United States, from America, came to Ireland many years ago. And not only to Ireland, but to lots of other places. Those missionaries had to have resources. They had to have the gospel. They had to have the freedom to worship, and they had to have the resources to be able to travel to places like Ireland and other places in order to share the everlasting gospel with the people of the earth. And when I think about the church, the good that the church has done throughout the world, and the resources that they've shared, and the printing of the Book of Mormon, all the copies of the Book of Mormon that have flooded the earth, all the missionaries that have served, all the buildings that have been built, all the work that's been done by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I do not believe that would have been possible were it not for the fact that the Lord set up the United States, and he prepared the way, he prepared the ground, he prepared the natural resources, he prepared the people to go there, and Joseph Smith and all the other things that happened as part of the restoration. And these are deep things, these are profound things. This is a true spiritually unfolding work, that those people would have the resources to not just share the gospel in the Americas, but share the gospel throughout the entire world. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing unfolding before our eyes. And that work is unfolding. It's not yet finished. And so Zion is being built upon the American continent. That's already happening and will continue to unfold, as President Nelson has told us, in more clear and powerful ways that are yet to come. I really believe that. And some might say that's naive. But for me, it is true. It is powerfully true that the restored gospel of Jesus Christ flourished, even though there was great opposition in America, even though the church had a very difficult time and great persecution. As we know, the saints suffered tremendously. Imagine what would have happened if the church had been set up in Europe. It really wouldn't have survived at that time. It just about survived in America. But because of the opportunity, because of the beacon, because of the freedom, the church has continued to grow and flourish throughout the earth. And so really they're the two ideas that I wanted to talk about in this video. God bless the United States of America, to heal that nation, to save it, to preserve it, in order that his work might be fulfilled. And that work of freedom-loving people everywhere, the work of saving souls. It's the idea of saving souls. That's what really motivates me. And I think that was the underpinning for why I loved Superman, the movies, so much, and why I loved the idea of opportunity and the representation, the ideal that the promised land would show. And whether we're talking about the Pilgrims or the Puritans or the Amish or whoever we're talking about that went to the New World, the New Land, it's important for us to remember and reflect on that destiny. Of course, that work is not yet finished. There's still a great and mighty work to be done for goodness to spread over the earth, for prosperity to spread over the earth, for all the children of God to benefit and to be blessed by universal standards of goodness and light and truth. And in particular for the restored gospel, the restored covenants, the restored truth, the doctrine, the laws, the ordinances, the priesthood, the powers of heaven, for the gifts of the Spirit, the unfolding of this great Latter-day work of temples and missionary service and all the beautiful things we have in the gospel. So if I could combine those two ideas together and say that the United States for me has been a place of beckoning, a bastion, a haven, imperfect though it be, like all nations are imperfect. The nations of men are imperfect, but God is working through that country and other countries, of course, but he's worked through the United States to bring about something marvelous in this world. And there are many things that we could say about that. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. This is just brief. I could talk for hours about what I've learned and what I've experienced and what I've felt and what I've seen about the unfolding of God's work over the last few hundred years. And there are many thoughts that occur to me, but it's important to note that God has an interest in our lives. He has an interest in all the things that we're involved in our goals, in our wishes, in our desires, in our aspirations. He has an interest in our work, in our education, in our relationships, in our health, in our living conditions, in how we sustain ourselves, in our shelter, in all the aspects of our lives. He desires to bring out of our lives something better, something abundant, something beautiful. And I'm so grateful. I am grateful. I'm grateful for America. I'm grateful for the United States. And this is not meant as an attack on other countries, of course. It's meant as an invitation to say, I feel blessed. I feel grateful for the influences in my life that have beckoned me onward, that have lifted me upward, that have inspired me, that have encouraged me to be more than I am, to reach higher, to go deeper, to search more fully, to push myself, to have a sense that life is for living, to have a goal, to have a dream, to believe that life can be good, that life can be better, that we can all make something new out of our lives as we believe in God, as we trust Him, as we honor Him, as we sustain Him, as we love Him. He can bless us. He can prosper us. He can sustain us. He can showcase light to us, and He can help us to be all that we need to be. I'm grateful for spirituality. I'm grateful for worship. I'm grateful for example. I'm grateful for God. I pray that God will bless each one of us, that we will appreciate what we have, that we will safeguard that which is good, that we will uphold that which is noble, that we will seek for excellence in our lives, in our cultures, in our manner of speech, in our manner of living, that we will reach for the divine, have that upward reach for the best life, the greatest good, the holiest thing, that we will strive to be better, to refine ourselves, to be polished, to be improved, to make something more of our lives. And I know as we do that, the wondrous gospel of Jesus Christ is that God can use men and women, use them not in a bad way, use them in a beneficial way. He can use all things to prosper His cause, to build up His kingdom, to sustain His truth, to uphold His work. And I'm blessed to be cognizant of that, to realize that, to see that, to be thankful for that. I see imperfections in this world, but I also see the beauties. I see the joys. I see the privileges. I see the blessings for me and for my family and for all the children of God. All of God's children can be blessed. The gospel is for everyone who's willing to receive it, who's willing to obtain it. And there's a promised land ahead of us. This earth is just at this moment is just a temporary place. The promised land is ahead of us. And this life is a symbol of that, but the real promised land is when this earth is transformed and changed into the eternal abode of God. And that happens in stages, one in the millennium, and then when the end of the millennium comes, there will be another transformation, and this world will become a beautiful, glorious place. But now is the time to be preparing for that. Now is the time to look forward, to position ourselves, to uplift our view, to expand our vision, to have a sense of destiny, to have a sense of opportunity, to have a sense that we are blessed. We are blessed as we follow God and love Him and serve Him. I'm so grateful for these principles and truths. I just felt to share that in the hope that it would give encouragement, that it would give inspiration, that it would help us to be steadfast to God, to love Him, to serve Him, to honor Him, not to move away from Him, not to depart from Him, not to abandon Him, but to love Him and to serve Him and His principles, His ideals, His standards, His scriptures, His messages, His prophets, His Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, that we would sustain these things. We would look for the good. We would incline towards the great. We would live the high life, the noble life, the high road, and seek for that country and that city that has God as its foundation, that we would seek for the best in architecture, the best in design, the best in art, the best in music, the best in literature, the best in dance, the best in design of clothing, the best in architecture and engineering and mathematics and philosophy and history and all the things that we learn as we sojourn through this amazing thing amazing experience we call mortality. And I find myself inarticulate to be able to explain the full scope and scale and grandeur of these things. These are things that we carry deep within us in our hearts. These are feelings and emotions. And I wish I could explain how I felt as a young child to see Superman and to see that beckoning. Not just Superman, but that's just the symbol. That's just the symbol. But the reality that these things stand for, the newness of life, a new opportunity, a struggle towards greatness, an upward reach, a desire not for ascendancy or a desire for domination, but a desire for improvement, for refinement, to be something, to achieve something, to accomplish something in our lives, to work hard and to feel the sense of contribution that comes from hard work and self-sacrifice and standards and values that are timeless, that never dissipate, that should never go away. Service and community and thanksgiving and gratitude and honor and courage and determination and bravery. These are the things I think that America has stood for me, and many other places, of course. But we are to be a light to the world. We are to beckon to those, and I'm grateful that we have that opportunity to show our light to the world, however small that light might be, to show it forth, to use it, to light the candle that others have, to light up their lives, to light up their rooms, to inspire them, to encourage them, to give them some sort of solace, to give them some sort of belief that the future can be better than the past, that through the lens of faith, life can be sweet. Everything looks better through the gospel lens, and everything looks better as we apply God's principles, as we apply principles of fairness and goodness and happiness and hard work and generosity and thankfulness and nobility of character and strength of purpose and that sense of vision. I hope I'm giving expression to all these things, and I really feel that. I feel the great beauty and joy that comes from having a cause, a great cause, a cause to build, to sustain, to renew, to re-establish, to reaffirm the true principles that are everlasting. The truth is everlasting. It is eternal. There are some principles that will never be outdated, that will never be out of fashion. Service, love, generosity, help, honor, keeping our word, telling the truth, being grateful. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I hope you will have a beautiful day. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed Sabbath. Thank the Lord for his goodness. Pray with gratitude for all his tender mercies, for all his blessings, for all his wondrous works. I do, and I hope to be more grateful, to remember that I'm blessed, to remember that I have food and clothing and shelter, that I have inspiration, that I have encouragement, that I have an example, that I have a light beckoning to me in the darkness of my sadness, that when I was a little child, I had somewhere to look. I had hope because someone somewhere held out a light, an ensign, an example to me that showed me, look, things can be better, things can be good, things can be beautiful and sweet and wonderful. Life is for living, and joy can be found in God and in his works and in his gospel and in his law. How grateful I am for these things. Have a wonderful, blessed day.